This base type is currently dominating Clash of Clans, and if you're struggling with it, you need to watch this video because GAKU is going to show you exactly how to crush it every single time. With that, hello and welcome to yet another video. My name is GumGum and this is the base type we're going to talk about. It is the, well, how do you say it? There's not really a name for the base type. I would say it's like maybe a ring base, but it's not specifically like a typical ring base. It's just you have a town hall with a few key defenses in the middle of the base. You have a shit ton of walls around that, and it's basically incredibly hard to get. Well, it's incredibly hard to triple if you don't know how to do so. If you know how to do it, they're incredibly easy, but if you don't know how to attack them, which probably some of you out there are at least struggling with, you can easily get a 1-star. And you will often get a 1-star. That's of course also the case why these bases are so popular, because you're either going to get tripled or you're going to defend on a 1-star. And defending on a 1-star, especially in a Clan War League, as well as of course in Legends League, is very, very nice. But let's just take a look at how GAKU is going to approach these bases, and it's basically very simple. We have the strategy, which also a few other content creators have already showed you, with like the 11 totem spells, and then in combination with like a little bit of Hydra. There's also the variant where you can do this maybe with super dragons as well as electro dragons. For example, Hachi does it with electro dragons and is having a lot of success with that as well. So therefore, you can just combine every single type of dragon which you like into the strategy. And 11 totem spells, you can just use them to set up your Flame Flinger, for example. So GAKU does it perfectly. There's only one expo that is going to struggle with the Flame Flinger. So it's going to tank that with a totem spell. And just take a look at how long it takes for a Flame Flinger to take out a totem spell. And now, after the Flame Flinger is taken out the expo, just take a look at the pathing on this bottom side. The pathing on this bottom side is basically perfect. He goes into the back of the air sweeper, and then now has the perfect pathing into the middle of the base. He is going to use the king and the queen on the left hand side to funnel that side, so the dragons have nowhere to go except for in the middle of the base, where you of course want them to go. And on the archer queen, you of course now have the giant arrow, which you're going to use to lure that invisibility tower in the core of the base. And after that invisibility tower is popped, your dragons are going to fly into the middle of the base. Then you're going to use the minion principality, and the core is just gone in an instant. You're going to tank your heroes, so your Barbarian King as well as your Archer Queen with totem spells as well. You have 11 totem spells, so just use them. Just use them. Don't think about it too much. It's just best to just deploy them. Everything you have to worry about, you don't really have to worry about when to deploy them. You just have to worry about deploying them. So rather sooner than later, just deploy all of those totem spells. And then maybe keep a few for the back end and just deploy them wherever you think like, okay, there are a few defenses that are now going to rain down fire on top of my troops. And you're just going to deploy a few totem spells, and with that, those defenses will be tanked. And with that, you have easy peasy 3 stars on this base type that looks very hard at first glance. And this isn't a close attack. This isn't a close attack for sure. This is a complete overkill. And we're talking about Legends League, where we have the Legends League modifiers. And if GAKU is going to be so dominant in Legends League on this specific base type, you can do so too in normal Clan War leagues as well as other leagues below Legends League. But of course, there are a lot of variants of this very specific base type. And here we have a complete different setup without an Invis Tower, but still we're going to use the same approach. So we're going to, well, deploy a few rocket loons. Mainly what we're going to want to do with those rocket loons is scout for Tesla, scout for possibly a possible Tesla, and then maybe also if there are a few, if there are a few mortars in front of where you want to deploy the Flame Flinger, you can also take those out with those rocket loons. GAKU messed up a little bit with the first totem spell, so the expo actually locked onto the Flame Flinger for a very, very short amount of time. So that was very unlucky, but still, he is able to take out the expo, and after that, hopefully, also the ricochet cannon, and after the ricochet cannon has gone down, which is unfortunately not the case, but still funneling on the bottom side should be more than sufficient for the dragons to go nowhere else but into the core of the base. And he is also now going in from the bottom side, so actually against this sweeper, but still the pathing from this side should be very, very nice. So if you take a look, if you now were to go in from the right hand side, for example, so you would deploy the Archer Queen as well as the Barbarian King on the right hand side, then you don't really have the best funneling here on this side as well as on that side, because those dragons are going to split from those wizard towers. So you have a few that are going to fly into the core of the base, and then a few that are going to fly towards the left hand side, and a few that are going to fly towards the right hand side. So GAKU now, of course, chose to go in from the, what's it called? 8 o'clock side? Yeah, 8 o'clock, roughly 8 o'clock. Because the bottom funnel is now basically perfect. Also, the top funnel will be done by the Barbarian King as well as the Archer Queen. And then the dragons, after this multi-archer tower has been taken care of, which is hopefully the case very, very soon, the dragons are not going to split as much. So of course there are going to be a few dragons that are going to split towards the multi-gear tower, but still a lot of dragons are going to fly into the middle of the base, where you of course want them to go because you need to overpower the core. That's always what you need to happen. You need to overpower the core. You need as many troops into the core as possible, and then you can use a perfect minion principality, perfect Grand Warden's Eternal Tome, and then afterwards the troops can split off and you can use the remaining totem spells to tank for those dragons, and they will just take out the remaining defenses. You of course still have your heroes on the outside, as well as of course the contents that come out of the Flame Flinger, and then you can easily overpower the back end of the base. Of course there are still a few defenses left standing, but just take a look at the whole mass of dragons we have on this side as well as on the top side, and the Archer Queen as well as the Fire Spitter as well as the air defense have no chance whatsoever stopping this push. So therefore also this base has been completely crushed. But of course we're going to take a look at a few more variants, because this base is so popular in so many variants, and you of course want to triple them all. And here we have the next variant of this base, this time with basically just the Town Hall as well as a Revenge Tower in the middle of the base. And then on the outside we actually have two Rage Tower setups, which is of course completely different to the bases we have seen before, but still your setup which you're going to use on the base is going to be relatively similar to what we have seen on the other two bases. So let's take a look at how GAKU is going to approach it. GAKU is still deciding a little bit on how to attack it, but now he has found a way to do so, and he is of course going to use those rocket loons to snipe out the mortar. And then after the mortar has been taken care of, you're going to deploy the Flame Flinger to funnel the bottom side, and then most likely he is going to go in from the Hero Hall, and then he is going to make his way through the Town Hall. And of course you're going to use one totem spell once again to tank for the Expo. That's of course more than perfect. So the Expo, just take a look, it tanks for basically an eternity. So it's 13,000 hit points, and if there's just one Expo shooting down on top of the totem spell, it is going to tank for eternity. And now just take a look, Expo has been taken care of, then afterwards the Fire Spitter will also be taken care of, and on top of the Fire Spitter you're also going to splash away the Sweeper, so that Sweeper is also not going to do too much harm. And from the right hand side you of course now don't have an invisibility tower in the middle of the base, so you can use the Giant Arrow for something else. So for example in this case that would be, well, something like an air sweeper, maybe some air defenses, and also here with a totem spell as well as the Inferno Dragon, he now perfectly took out the enemy the enemy Barbarian King. And you can take a look, Air Swoop, that's a Giant Arrow, has come in from the right hand side, taking care of the Air Sweeper, and now the dragons have nowhere to go except for in the middle of the base, and the Air Sweeper that was pointing towards the middle of the base is now not going to do too much, which is of course absolutely perfect. On the outside you're now going to use the remaining totem spells, still 3 remaining totem spells left. You also still have the Dark Orb from the Minion Prince, which has been used now, because of course in the middle of the base. This case, there wasn't too much damage, so there wasn't really any reason to use the minion prince ability. So therefore, he now chose to use the minion prince ability in the backend, because you of course want to always freeze or well slow down the damage of the base, which perfectly worked out in this case. Of course, there is still quite a few of heavy defenses in the backend, which he is going to freeze. But still, the remaining few defenses are going to do some harm to the remaining troops that are left on the base, or well, left attacking the base, but it's just not enough to deal with all of those heroes, because of course, even though those heroes are nerfed significantly with the Legends League modifiers, they are still incredibly strong, and in normal clan wars, as well as of course in Clan War League, or in any ranked league below Legends League, those heroes are going to be even stronger. And if they're going to overpower a base like that in Legends League, they're going to do so for you as well in any other league, as well as in Legends League, of course. And here we have more of a, I would say, diamond or ring shaped base. So the bases we've seen before were more, I would say, box shaped. So they all had like, I would say, normal flanks, so always flanks in a complete length, and now we have flanks that are, well, rounded, which is of course way harder to funnel. But let's take a look at how GAKU approaches these as well, because it's going to be a little bit different but still quite similar. Because of course, it is still going to be exact same setup, where you're going to use a flame flinger to funnel one side and then the heroes to funnel the other side. Now he got a little bit, he misplaced the flame flinger unfortunately, so therefore the flame flinger is now going to do not exactly what he had hoped for. So of course, if you're going to take out the expo here on the right hand side, you have the perfect funnel on the right hand side, and then on the left hand side you can just use the heroes, and then with the dragons from the bottom side against, I mean, in the back of both of those sweepers, you have those dragons have nowhere to go except for in the middle of the base. But he got a little lucky that the flame flinger didn't lock onto the wizard tower, or well, onto the super wizard tower, but rather onto the expo directly. So he's still going to take out the expo, and with that he is going to have the perfect funnel in the right hand side. Now on the left hand side, the Grand Warden comes, I mean, not the Grand Warden, the Barbarian King comes in together with the Archer Queen, giant arrows straight through the base to lure that invisibility tower. And now the dragons come in from the right hand side, or well, from the right bottom side, to march straight in the middle of the base, and we're going to overpower that core. Of course, we're going to have two fire spitters on the back end, but you have to think about that we still have a few totem spells. We're going to use the tank, and as I've just already said, or well said before, just use those totem spells. Just deploy them to tank absolutely everything for those dragons. And with those totem spells, those dragons, they can basically not go down. So just take a look at after this core, after this incredibly heavy core, basically still all of his dragons are left standing. Still the Archer Queen is going to march her way through the left hand side. And you still have the Minion Prince, who is in complete full life with the Phoenix. And with that, also this base has been completely crushed. So that's exactly, also if you're finding new variants that you haven't seen in this video, you're still going to deploy the exact same setup. So you want to funnel one side with your flame flinger, funnel the other side with your dragons, I mean not with your dragons, with your Barbarian King as well as the Archer Queen, and then you want your dragons to go into the middle of the base. So you have to choose an angle where you're not going to go into any sweeper, or one sweeper at most. And of course, you want to have a perfect pathing, or want to have the possibility to make a perfect pathing for your dragons to go in the middle of the base, which GAKU is just completely which GAKU is just perfectly showing towards us. And this specific base is also basically everywhere. So this is most likely, I would say, even the most popular version of this base, where you have like one compartment on the back end with like a monolith as well as a few other defenses, and then you have so incredibly many defenses just clumped into a rage tower compartment, or well, into a rage tower in the middle of the base. And you're going to do a, well, I would say relatively similar approach on this one as well. So you're once again going to tank an Expo with a totem spell to deploy your Flame Flinger, and after that you always want to go into the backend compartment, so the small compartment that's always hanging onto this base. And now a second totem spell has been used to tank the Expo for just a little bit longer, so the Flame Flinger can do a little bit more work. And now after the Expo, for example, has been taken out, then the air defense will also be splashed by those Fire Mites, and then Archer Queen as well as Barbarian King come in from the bottom side. Most likely GAKU is now going to aim for both of those air sweepers with the giant arrows. So for example, from the army camp, you can now perfectly align a giant arrow for both of those air sweepers, and that's of course going to help your dragons out quite a bit. But let's of course take a look at how GAKU is going to do it. He is actually going to only take out one of those air defenses, one of those air sweepers, which is of course still very, very neat, because the other air sweeper, to be honest, from the angle where he's going to go into, it is not going to do too much. And what I find incredibly interesting, most of the times you would see people using a unicorn on top of the queen and then as well a frosty on top of the barbarian king, but GAKU is actually going to use the Spirit Fox on top of the Barbarian King, and with that the Barbarian King is always just able to survive for like a little bit longer. And also if the Barbarian King gets attacked by some kind of defenses, you just need to deploy a totem spell and it's going to be go invisible for a short amount of time, and then the defenses are going to lock onto the on top of the totem spell, not on the Barbarian King anymore. And just take a look, this base has been completely crushed. So if you're finding this variant or any incredibly similar variant, you now know how to completely take it apart. And then every single time you can just implement this exact setup and you will be able to triple it every single time, as long as you of course don't make a mistake with your Flame Flinger. Your Flame Flinger needs to do proper funneling. And now let's quickly take a look at yet another base, because even though I would say this base doesn't really fit into the exact same setup of the bases we have seen before, but yet it is still an incredibly popular base that is basically everywhere in Legends League or Clash of Clans right now. So we also need to be able to triple this specific base. And if you're able to triple this specific base, you're going to get a lot of free stars in Clash of Clans, or like in the current season. And also on this base, you're going to deploy a Flame Flinger on the right hand side, and then you're going to use the totem spell once again to tank for the Expo. Always there are like 4 Tesla here in front of the town hall, which you can just easily lure with like a few of your barbarians, and 1 Tesla is always on the top side, which you can also easily lure. And now Flame Flinger is doing a wonderful job on the right hand side. And now most people are always trying to go into the town hall compartment, where you're always going to go against 2 of those air sweepers, which is not really too nice. But now with the giant arrow, you can of course perfectly take out those air sweepers, and with that they're not going to do too much. So perfect giant arrow from GAKU right there. And now also he is going to wait a little bit longer for his Flame Flinger as well as his heroes to do some proper funneling, and then everything just gets clumped up from the bottom side just straight into the town hall. The troops are splitting off, but that's more than fine. They're going to combine their strengths once again and going to overpower this small section of the base where every single bit of the damage is located. So once you're through this town hall setup with like the multi-inferno towers as well as the fire sweepers behind that, you basically have crushed this base, because on the back end, just take a look at what it is. Flame Flinger is taking out the right hand side. On the left hand side, you basically just have 2 air defenses, 1 monolith and 1 multi-arch tower on the back end, which is not going to stop every single bit of your troops that is going to march their way throughout this, that is still going to survive after this town hall setup, if you do it properly at least. So if you're going to tank properly with your totem spells, also this base is not going to be an issue whatsoever, and also shouldn't be too much of a difficulty to triple with this exact army and this exact setup. So if you want to try it out yourself, or well, I can only advise you to do so. Please test this out. This attack strategy is so incredibly strong. Army link is of course in the description. Thanks a lot to GAKU for sharing his replays. With that, I would say see you guys soon with the next video. Until then, see ya and bye bye.